What's up guys, it's Rowan here from Artist Smart TV, and today I'm sitting down and chatting with Henry. Now Henry at the start of year 12, so just at the end of year 11, received an estimated ATAR between 60 and 70. But at the end of the journey, Henry had turned things around and scored an 89.65. Now, importantly though, along the journey, Henry was also training for an elite sport. So he had an incredible training regime that was going on, and he managed to balance that sporting commitment while making a remarkable transformation in his overall results so that he could create more options for himself, both for university in Australia, but also for opening options for overseas study and to pursue his sport as well. So welcome, Henry. Now, I'd love to hear a little bit more. What is the sport that you're passionate about and have been training for?
I row, I'm a rower, so I've been rowing for 2 years now. I picked it up pretty late in year 11. And I think pretty early on knew that it was what I wanted to pursue, and I've loved it ever since. I mean, gotten into it pretty heavily, and it's been awesome.
So that means you picked it up at the start of year 11, basically, is that right? So you pick it up at the start, which is an interesting time to pick up a commitment that is as time intensive as rowing or anything, given that it's HSC, sort of prelim. So you pick it up. What does a typical training week look like in terms of your commitment to rowing?
Coming up to the peak times, we're training 12-ish sessions a week, somewhere around there.
Just quickly doing the maths, that means what, twice a week, 6 days a week? Is that what we're sort of looking at?
So Sundays was off and Thursday mornings was off, and it was pretty much morning and afternoon every other time.
Are you there for half an hour, 2 hours? What's a typical?
It was pretty much around 5:30 to 7 in the mornings, so an hour and a half to 2 hours in the mornings. And then in the afternoon was about 3:30 to 5:30.
Okay, so you've got at least 3 hours a day. So 12 times 3, my maths is not great. Is that 36?
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So that's a 36-hour training commitment. So that's almost a full-time work week, right? To put this into context, right? That's 38 hours. So you've got a 36-hour commitment that you're trying to maintain while studying for your HSC, no less. And I'm imagining, were you pretty tired at the end of the day, given that you were up pretty early?
Yeah, no doubt. I was very tired. I think throughout the 2 years, I learned different techniques just to be able to cope with less sleep or here and there, different stuff to do. But I think a lot of it was me realizing that I can fit a lot into a day, and there is actually quite a lot of stuff that if you want to, you can jam pack into a day. If you remove time on your phone or this or that, you can really, when you have the time to study, you have to study and you get it done. And it is really good because you go to sleep at the end of the night, you go straight to sleep, you're done for the day, but you got a lot done. So I think it's a productive way to be. And I think the more I trained, the more it helped with my study, I think. Because as I said, the times I had to study, I had to study. There was no option. It was like, okay, if I want to achieve these marks and I also want to be able to row at this level, then I have to put them together and I have to do both. And I think in that way, they just lent on each other and helped me really get through both year 11 and year 12.
Which is sort of counterintuitive to say that I have 36 hours of training for rowing, and that's actually helping me study more effectively. Now, I want to dive in and unpack this a little bit more. So, you mentioned something that I think is so key. You were saying, well, actually, there's a lot of time in a day if you think about it. So I'd love to find out, first of all, what times of the day did you find yourself studying, given that you had training 5:30 to 7, 3:30 to 5?
Yeah, generally what I did was in the morning, I'd do the training, get to school, do my day at school, afternoon, do my training 3:30 to 5:30. And then I'd stay at school and study the library. I'd normally get into study 5:45, 6, somewhere around there after having dinner. And then the school library was open till 8. So I'd do a solid 2-hour block if I finished training early, 2.5-hour block there. And then I'd finish up at school, go home and do another hour at home before bed.
Yeah, wow. So you're looking at maybe then, 2.5 to 3 hours, give or take, that you were doing on top of your training. And so in other words, it was not like get home, just chill out. You still knew that.
Yeah, and still knew that I had to do stuff. And then also Sunday was a huge day for me. So Sunday I had off for training, and I think I had to have the maturity to go, okay, I'm losing hours throughout the week due to training, and I have to catch that up on a Sunday. So if that means you got to get up a little bit earlier and you don't get that big sleep in or whatever, and then I just had a big day Sunday, so if it meant I had to do 8 or 10 hours or 12 hours, whatever it was on Sunday, then that's just the way it was, because other kids are getting, you know, more hours of studying in the afternoon, and if I want to keep the ball rolling and keep myself up with everything, then I think that's the way I had to do it.
A Sunday then, what time would you find yourself often starting study on a Sunday?
I'd normally get up 7-ish, 8-ish.
Which is a relatively sleep-in for you anyway, right?
Yeah, which when you're used to waking up at 4:30, 4:15, that's a sleep-in. So.
Yeah. And then you'd start studying, you said around 8:30, was it?
Yeah. Between 8 and 8:30, I'd normally get into it. And then I just have a big day Sunday.
And it sounds like Sunday was just, it wasn't necessarily that you had like, I'm going to do 6 hours. It was like, I've got to get whatever I didn't get done caught up on.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also about, I very much understood the times when I was going to be productive. And a Sunday when I've had a big sleep was the times when I was going to be productive. So, you know, on a Wednesday afternoon when I've done 3 days in a row of early mornings, I'm cooked. So I'm never going to do anything too intensive then, nothing that really requires like deep, heavy thinking for me, because I found I just wasn't productive in those moments. And if anything, I was going backwards because I'd get frustrated, I'd make mistakes. And if I'd leave it to a Sunday, or I'd leave it to a time when I was fresh and I was ready, then those times were so much more productive for me.
So really critically then it was getting that self-awareness. When is my energy going to be high? When is it going to be low? And then quite strategically choosing the sorts of tasks that you would do. So as you said, the Wednesday, what was something that was like low level that wasn't going to tax your brain that you would typically do on a Wednesday?
For example, notes that I was already pretty understood in class and I was pretty comfortable with, I'd just jot them out and I'd get my notes done. I would never do maths or chem at those times because I struggled with them as they were at the start of the year were my lowest subjects, and I struggled with them as it was. So I would never try and, you know, be a superhuman and crank out those hours then, because I think you got to understand that no one is a superhuman, and if you've had 6 hours of sleep by the afternoon, by the time that comes around, you're not peaking. So
then that was Sunday morning, right? It sounds like chem and maths, the hard stuff you were trying to just save for when you were fresh. Now, one of the other things you mentioned was just, you know, with your phone, right? And just being aware. And I think, you know, that's probably for any human, right? Not just a student, it's probably our biggest source of distraction. What were some of the things that you did then to just, because it sounds like when you had to study, because you had small windows, you had to be highly focused. Because if you weren't, you know, you weren't going to get the work done, and that was going to have consequences. So what were some of the things that you did, whether or not it was with your phone or beyond, that helped you stay really focused in those sessions?
I think when I was at school, 2 things. I left it in my bag, and I'd only really check it when I was having dinner and at my meal times, whatever. That would be like my chill out time. And also, I think I turned off my notifications completely. So even if it was with me, it wasn't buzzing and distracting me. And I'd know, and I think also it just takes the maturity to be like, okay, it's 1 year, I don't have to be on my phone every 5 minutes, I can just put it away, I can do this study time. And I think also I put myself in a quiet corner. So I'm a pretty extroverted, chatty person, and if you put me near someone, I will talk to them. So I think I just put myself in a corner, headphones in with no music, just so I couldn't hear anybody, and just knuckled down and got my work done normally.
A real theme then is self-awareness, right? Self-awareness, 1, as you said, on knowing when your energy was high and low, right? To know when to study, and then 2, self-awareness and knowing what are my sources of procrastination, you know, like I'm chatty, okay, other people, let's construct an environment essentially that will support me being at my best and staying focused.
Yeah, no doubt. I think you can tell yourself you're a superhuman and you can study with, you know, rock music and do all these things, and yeah, you know, you can stay up late and you can do all these miraculous things, but at the end of the day, like, I think you have to be self-aware and be like, no, I need to be smart with my study time to get the most out of it. And I think that was really what a lot of it was about, being able to find a balance through being self-aware and understanding when I'm going to be on and when I'm not going to.
So now what I'd love to do is just understand how this then played out with trials and HSC, because I can see how, you know, as a sort of plan that you had, that you know, clearly is something that you could maintain during a term. But I wonder, you know, trials come up, you've got a 2-week exam block. How did you deal with your commitments? Were you dialing them back, or did you maintain them? Like, what did it look like with trials and HSC?
I dialed them back a bit so that I was just training once, maybe twice a day, but normally just once a day.
So that's from 12 maybe down to like 6 or 8 times?
Yeah. Okay. So I wasn't going to early morning trainings. My coaches were pretty good with me there, so I wasn't training early. And I think in that period, I got the sleep back, and I started to really. I was on a lot more of the day. I was a lot more focused, and I think also then I still definitely trained because my body's used to that, and I'm used to doing a large amount of exercise, and it helps me. So I think as a mindset, I have, okay, I'm going to do this hour, I'm going to do this 2 hours, and then I have that time where I'm working out. I can relax, I can breathe, and I can get it all out, clear my system, and then I can come back and refocus after lunch or whatever it was. And I think that really helped in terms of me mentally throughout the day. It'd be like, okay, just get to this part, then I get to have a bit of relax, go on road, do what I like to do, and then come back to it. I think it'd work the same with anybody, whether you're rowing or doing whatever, if you're going for a run or even just having a nap for an hour. Do you know what I mean? If that's your break time and that's what you're doing to clear your head, I think it's really valuable.
So then I think what's really interesting there is don't quit. Like, you didn't quit everything and go, oh, HSC or trials, I'm going to dial everything back. It was like, no, like, this is important to me. It's actually going to be an outlet to stay healthy physically and mentally at your best. But it also sounds like what's really critical is to have conversations if you've got coaches, trainers, even if it's work that you're doing, right? Just to have that conversation with them about, hey, there's a certain amount of flexibility that I'm going to require here, and it's for a certain period of time, just so that you can, as you said, create a little more time and space.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really awesome. A sort of final question or two. What advice would you have then for other students that are coming into years 11 and 12 and have a lot of commitments on their plate, and they're maybe worried or concerned or about how they might balance it all and whether or not it's the right decision?
I would say have the self-awareness and the maturity to understand your goals and what you're going to have to do to rearrange your life for those goals. So if you want to achieve a certain ATAR and you also want to do whatever you want to do in your sport, then you have to sacrifice and move certain things around to do that. And I think for me, a lot of it was organising myself throughout my day. I'm not normally a very organised person, but become an organised person and be self-aware and understanding what I'm going to do throughout the day to get the most out of that day. And I think for me, it was the accumulation of days where I was organised and did the small things that ultimately made the big changes.
I think what's really important in your journey, it seems like, is having real clarity on that goal.
Yeah.
Because if you have lots of commitments that you've just taken on board, but you don't necessarily have clarity on what the goal is you're trying to achieve, you've got less of an incentive to go, well, I need to structure this and there's some clear priorities here. So it seems like that really helped, getting that clarity. And that came in, the start of year 11 when you realised, hey, rowing's something I want to take seriously.
Yeah.
And then, hey, this HSC is something I want to do. Or did the HSC clarity, you're like, I want to do better at that, really kick in a little bit later?
It was definitely rowing first. I think I started rowing full time, and then after, I think it was semester 2, year 11, I think my report card came out. I was like, okay, I really need to start kicking into gear now, because I always, to be completely honest and open, through years 7 to 10, I never put in that much effort, and I always wrote off a bad result with the classic line like, oh, if I tried, I would be able to get a good mark. But what I didn't understand is that a lot of this is built knowledge. So for a subject like maths, where it's built knowledge year on year, I was getting to year 10 and 11, and I was like getting things wrong that I covered in year 8 and 9. And I think a lot of it took a lot of maturity to look back and go, okay, no, like, you didn't apply yourself, and it's time to go back and relearn and refocus, because I got to make up for the years that I didn't put in that effort. In terms of that, I think, it was just consistently looking back and being like, okay, what did I miss? Go back, let's redo it. And like, sometimes I found myself doing like year 9 algebra, and it was like embarrassing, but it's just the things I had to do to improve the marks.
I think that's great that you took the responsibility, because I think you can get there and just keep on going, oh, well, I'm this is not possible, I'll do a different level of maths or whatever, right? But it seems like you really were like, actually, I didn't do the work.
Yeah.
I got to do it.
Yeah.
So Just looking back on the journey, if you could go back into a time machine to the start of year 12, is there anything you'd do differently?
Pick different subjects. I mean, if I wouldn't do it differently, if I wanted to do better in the ATAR, I definitely would have picked different subjects, but I think I learned a lot about myself with the subjects I picked. I think I chose chem, physics and advanced maths, which were all subjects that I didn't focus in the earlier years, and I definitely paid the price in having to really relearn stuff that I probably shouldn't have had to relearn. And then in other subjects, I did ancient history, and ancient history, it was only indicative from what I learned that year. So what I learned about the Romans or the Greeks or whatever it was, it didn't matter what I learned in year 9 because that was a different topic. So I think for those subjects, I really, when I clicked into gear and really focused, I got the reward quicker and I got a better result out quicker than those other subjects like chemistry and maths. But getting a good result in chem and maths was 100% more rewarding than any other subject because I really had to work for it.
And then final question, one of the things that you sort of highlighted was doing the small things consistently made the difference. Yeah. If, there was sort of 2 small things that you would recommend that students do that would accumulate and on your own experience were instrumental, what would those 2 small things be that they could do?
Focus in the moment. So there might be that hour block that you're doing at the end of the night where you're generally really unfocused and it's just that last little bit, like putting your phone away or not being distracted with your own thoughts and just focusing. And the second thing would definitely be the organisation of your schedule. So it's all well and good to say you're going to do that stuff, but then actually committing to that schedule and going through with it, I think would be the 2 things. Because it was having a schedule and committing to it that ultimately got me over the line and improved my marks.